We don't need your opinion, just your signature, my family said, selling our ancestral home without consulting me. You never cared about legacy anyway, they claimed. I signed without arguing. 3 months later, when they learned what that property was actually worth, my voicemail box was full. We don't need your opinion, just your signature, my family said. They were selling our ancestral home without consulting me. You never cared about legacy anyway, they claimed. I signed without arguing. 3 months later, when they learned what that property was actually worth, my voicemail box was full. Gio, I never thought I'd be posting here, but I need to get this off my chest. What happened with my family over the past few months has been, well, let's just say karma's a bit of background. When my grandfather passed away 3 years ago, he left his property, a 15-acre farmhouse with land that's been in our family for generations, to be shared equally between my father, my uncle, and me. This surprised everyone since I'd moved away for college and built my career in the city, while the rest of the family stayed local. My father and uncle were especially salty, as they'd been counting on splitting it just between themselves for the past 3 years. The property sat mostly unused. I visited maybe twice a year, usually just to check on things. The old farmhouse needed work, and the land was overgrown, but it held sentimental value. However, I never pushed my family about what to do with it. I knew they considered me the outsider who abandoned family traditions. 2 months ago, I got a call from my father. We're selling the property, he announced without preamble. The upkeep is too expensive, and your uncle and I agree it's time to let it go. The buyer is offering $180,000. I was shocked. Shouldn't we talk about this? I asked. This seems low for 15 acres, even in our rural area. My father's tone turned cold. We don't need your opinion, just your signature. You never cared about the legacy anyway. You left, remember? I tried asking about the buyers, the terms, and whether they'd explored other options. Each question was met with increased hostility. Look, my uncle chimed in from the background, we've already made the decision. The papers will be emailed to you. Just sign them and send them back. Consider your third as a nice bonus for doing nothing. Something about this felt off, but I didn't argue. Send the papers, I said and hung up. The next day, I received a document package with yellow highlights showing where to sign. There was no information about the buyer, no details about comparable properties, just signature lines. Instead of signing immediately, I made a few calls, first to a real estate friend in the area, then to the county assessor's office, and finally to a property developer I know from college who specializes in rural land. What I discovered was interesting. I drove the 5 hours back to my hometown that weekend and took a few days to investigate. I visited the county office to check recent permit applications, then drove out to the property to walk the land, taking photos and noting the creek, road access points, and old growth timber. I also arranged for a quick property assessment from a local real estate contact. When I had all the information, I showed up unannounced at my father's house, where the family was having dinner. My sister, who lives nearby and is currently pregnant, was there with her husband, as was my uncle and his wife. They looked shocked to see me. I've looked over the papers, I said, placing the document folder on the table. But I was curious about something. Who's buying the property? A local developer, my father replied vaguely. Someone will put the land to good use. Funny, I said, because I checked, and there's a pending application for a new housing development on file, 48 homes on our 15 acres. The developer estimates the project value at around $12 million. The room went dead silent, and I continued, I had the property assessed. Just the timber rights alone are worth about $200,000. The land, with road access and water rights, is valued at approximately $1.5 million. My uncle stood up, his face reddening. You had no right, he said. Actually, I had every right. I own a third of it, remember? Just like I had the right to look into who the mysterious buyer is. I pulled out my phone and showed them the LLC registration I'd found. Interesting that the buyer happens to be a company partly owned by my sister's husband, isn't it? My sister paled, and her husband suddenly became very interested in his plate. You're trying to say we're cheating you, my father demanded. I'm not saying anything, I replied calmly. I just found it curious that no one mentioned the development plans or the family connection when asking for my signature. I picked up the folder and said, no, I haven't signed these. I wanted to discuss this in person first. There was an immediate explosion of accusations, claiming I was being difficult and that I'd never cared about the family anyway. I waited until they ran out of steam. I'm not blocking the sale, I said finally. But I think we should entertain other offers, or if my sister's husband really wants the property, he can pay fair market value. I left that night, driving back to the city with their angry words still ringing in my ears. The next day, I had my lawyer send a formal letter proposing either a fair market sale or division of the property. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've received dozens of calls from family members trying to change my mind, ranging from guilt trips to thinly veiled threats. I haven't responded to any of them. Last week, a legitimate developer contacted all three of us with an offer of $1.8 million for the property. I immediately accepted. My father and uncle are still thinking about it, but their leverage is gone now that I've made it clear I know what's happening. This morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and a voicemail from my father. We need to talk about what's best for the family. Funny how what's best for the family suddenly includes my opinion now that millions are on the table. Update coming when this situation resolves. In the meantime, I'm grateful for my grandfather's foresight. He always said I was the only one who truly appreciated the land for what it was, not what could be taken from it. Edit, lots of people are asking why my grandfather left me a third when I moved away. He and I stayed close despite the distance. I called him weekly and visited when I could, and I helped him navigate his medical care in his final years. The rest of the family visited more often but mostly complained about the work the property needed. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. Update, just wanted to thank everyone for all the support on my last post. You all are amazing. A lot has happened in the past few weeks. You can click on share and more to see if there is a part 2.